This is how to get good at looping in Dead by Daylight. Let's say you're in chase right now, and you're able to make it to a pallet. Your instinct might be to drop it, which is great. That's kind of their whole function. But killers who actually have a brain will expect you to do this almost every time. This is especially important against killers who can shoot their power through it after you've dropped it. They will likely hold M2, hoping this will happen, but also slowing themselves down, making it even harder to catch up to you if you just keep running. Sometimes if you drop the pallet early enough, you can move out of the way before they manage to hit you. But it's not always guaranteed, so be careful. Some killers will confidently assume you'll try to camp the pallet so they'll swing right through, which is pretty fucking hilarious to watch. But most of the time, they either step back or try to catch you on the other side. Just obviously be careful the killer doesn't manage to hit you with their power afterwards. It's also important that you hug the loop as tightly as you can to make the most distance possible. This makes it easier to wrap around and get a few more loops in before sacrificing the pallet, but be careful not to get stuck. Here I was very lucky because we both ran into the same problem. If the killer catches up with you and swings, even if they hit you, it's still better to preserve the pallet and use the speed you get from being hit to make more distance and prolong the chase. Dropping it at that point and allowing the killer to break it is just a waste. If you're about to reach a pallet but someone is running right behind you in front of the killer, it makes zero sense to drop it unless you have a vendetta against the survivor. It's far better to run through and give that player an option instead of sandbagging them for no reason. I will remember this, Ace Visconti. Dropping it only ever makes sense when it means you can safely extend the loop, or if the killer has now been conditioned to expect you to keep running through it every time. But you've got to be assertive and do it before the killer gets enough time to swing through and completely destroy you. I should have dropped it. This is obviously a lot more complicated against anti-looping killers like Nurse, and I'll talk about that later. Fuck! But let's say the pallet has been dropped now and you're playing around it. Or maybe you found a window. In both cases, you're deciding when to vault. And this is where things get really interesting. Everything you think about doing, the killer is also thinking about you thinking about doing it. They're also thinking about you thinking about them thinking about you thinking about them The trick is to be aware of this and play around with the killer's expectations. It creates an abundance of 50-50 scenarios. If they predict your decisions incorrectly, it can often provide so much distance on some loops. If you drop a pallet and they don't immediately break it, this will increase the chances you'll make it back around to the pallet again, until they do break it or finally realize you have too much aura. When running towards a loop that already has a pallet downed, you could vault, but then the killer could just swing and probably get you if they're close enough. And so sometimes it's worth baiting the swing and instead stepping to the side and making them whiff. The problem you're trying to avoid here is getting hit while locked in the vaulting animation. There's obviously a huge element of luck too.
Oi!
Oh my god! Oh my god! You might get stuck at a window and the killer expects to catch up enough to swing, but then you get unstuck just in time. Or they'll expect you to vault the shack window, aim their ability, but then you step to the side, but then they readjust their aim, but then you step back towards the window again and they miss. The only times you definitely should vault is when you know it puts you in a safer position. An example is this window where the killer would have to waste time breaking this wall to get to me. If you want a clean running vault that doesn't slow you down, try not to vault at such a sharp angle. Instead, run from an angle more directly in front of it. You gotta have some distance away from it before running into it too. Think of it like momentum. If you're running parallel but next to it, there's not enough momentum heading towards the window, and so it doesn't count as a running vault. It doesn't have to be in a straight line, as long as there is enough momentum towards the window. Also beware of the lockers, because they can and will steal the vaulting prompt, and instead you'll be forced to hide in a locker, which is very annoying. Your best chance of getting the vault in this kind of situation is to press the button at the very last millisecond. Map and tile knowledge is the most important thing when you're looping in Dead by Daylight, and it comes naturally with just playing the game a lot and noticing how things connect over time. While you're thinking about what the killer is thinking about you thinking about doing, you should try not to get too lost in that train of thought and really think about somewhere to go after you've committed to a decision before making it. I love looping around this particular circle against dash slop killers because it's often difficult for them to use their powers to get around it, and so how you path depends on the killer's power, which is something you will pick up. It's about developing game sense based off of unresolved DBD related trauma you should probably mention to your therapist. You will understand the ways they'll most likely react as you react to their likely reactions to the previous mistakes you haven't made yet. And you want to make sure you're breaking line of sight too. If the killer can see you at all times, it makes it very easy for them to decide what you're about to do and react accordingly. Projectile killers need this most for a clean shot on you, so make sure you're behind something and use windows and pallets to make it more difficult for them to close the distance. That can mean finding the perfect opportunity to pre-drop a pallet or to pre-vault a window. And try not to stand too close to windows because killers will try to swing through them. After getting a stun, you could immediately go one direction and then change direction if they try to cut you off instead of breaking the pallet. You might run around a wall and lose sight of the killer but decide not to drop the pallet as you hear them swing around the corner expecting you to camp it. Or perhaps you do wait at the pallet because you suspect they'll try to cut you off and you manage to get the stun on the right side. You can usually deduct the safest option and use your resources to create maximum distance in case the killer is trying to mind game. Now every killer main will play slightly differently, so find good spots to safely stop running and check if the killer is where you expect them to be. Pay very close attention. You'll begin to understand how each player likes to play, providing you with intel on how to counter it. Seriously, some of these people are built different and will try to screw with your head. Sometimes you've got to stare at one end of the wall and just think about how long it might take them to get to the other side. I was right. I could smell it. You wouldn't play FNAF without checking both doors. Check spots are basically just that. If you're impatient and you panic, it will backfire. And many loops have higher floors too. Ideally, try to bait them into dropping down and swapping, so then they'll no longer have the option to follow you and drop on your head. Now, all of what I just said becomes wildly complicated against killers like the new Stranger Things Vecna and, of course, the Nurse, my beloved. Their types of powers heavily rely on prediction, to an extent that can get really mindfucky depending on who's controlling them. Where Vecna 2 can aim past walls but not necessarily see through them, Nurse can travel through them and instantly swing if you're close enough. And yeah, sure, sometimes MMR is on your side and you can totally confuse them, but then the very next match against the same killer could absolutely crush you. As killer, I would expect survivors to use this famous portal here, which is exactly why I didn't use it against Nurse. The animation of going through the portal was too risky, and they all have certain visual and audio cues that will give you hints about how and when they're going to use their power, but even then, don't get too comfortable. Those same cues can be used against you if the killer realizes that you're aware of it, and they can cancel their power when they're close enough to throw you off. And remember, even that basic M1 trapper from earlier could surprise you with a double back at the perfect moment. Oh shit. If you want to support my work, there's a Patreon linked in the description. Thanks for watching.